Welcome back to Lure Fishing TV, ladies and gents, and yet another tutorial. Today it's all about the mighty, infamous drop shot rig. Drop shot rig, what do we need? We need a weight. There's different weights out there for drop shot, guys. There's pair dropped ones or tier dropped ones, however you want to call them. There's round ones, there is the stick ones. Then on the different weights you've got different attachments as well, either a round eye or one of these tweezy eyes to just pinch your line in. I personally always use just a round one and knot it on there. So I'm going to do the tutorial today with one of these. It's the Tungsten finesse stick. The only other thing we need is a leader and a drop shot hook. Again, on the hooks I like to use one of these dedicated drop shot hooks, which is basically just a single hook with a short shank and a nice bend in it, ideal for nose hooking, which is something I'm going to show you in a sec. Alternatively, you can obviously use something with a bit longer shank if you want to actually thread your lure on there, or if you're fishing in heavy cover you can even use a Texas hook. But generally I like to use this, and you get the best movement out of your lures with this. Drop shot hook, rig, drop shot rig, let's go. We are taking our leader and threading the hook on it upside down. Then we're doing a loop this way, and then we're starting to form loops within the loop with the two lines you've got there, twisting them around like so. The more twists you do, the more stable your hook will stand at 90 degrees. Then we're going to take the hook and thread it through the loop that you have created within the loop, but not all the way. And then we're going to tighten this hook onto, this knot onto the shank of the hook. So this is a dropper loop, just without the loop, because you're not feeding the hook all the way through, creating a loop, but you're tightening it onto the shank, and you are ending up with a hook which is always and at all times standing away from the line at 90 degrees, which is exactly what you'd like. As I said, the more of these twists you do, the more stable this knot will get, and the heavier lures you can use without the hook really going down too much. So that is the drop shot rig basically done. All we need to do now is tie with whichever knot you use. I don't use a very strong knot here, so you definitely lose your weight before you lose your whole rig with the lure. Tie that on, and your drop shot rig is ready. There we go. So now, what do we use a drop shot rig for? We all know, well, as you can see, with a drop shot rig, you are presenting your bait right on top of the weight, without the bait being directly connected to the weight, which makes this rig, again, a finesse rig. What do finesse rigs have in common? Usually the hook is not connected, or the lure is not connected to the weight, so you have a free floating lure which plays really nice and naturally and gives the fish lots of time and not a lot of resistance to suck in your lure. So natural presentation again is the key on this rig. As you can see, we're basically fishing vertically here. We all know how effective it sometimes is when you fish vertically off a boat, or when you're next to a concrete bank or some sort of harbor wall and you're fishing vertically, and you can keep your lure really in the hot spot, in that honey hole, for as long as you'd like, and you always know where exactly your lure is, you know how high it is away from the bottom. Absolutely amazing. But let's say you've got a structure like that somewhere in the middle of the river or of the lake, and you don't have a boat. Now this is where the drop shot comes into play. You cast your lure or your rig close to that obstacle, if it's a tree, if it's some sort of tower in a reservoir, or if it's some sort of stone structure that you have established is down there and it's not even visible, by maybe feeling it with a weight, or maybe knowing it's there because you were there with a boat before and you used the fish finder. But you want to basically fish and keep your lure in a hot zone for as long as possible, and that hot zone is not vertically under you but away from you. So basically that rig will hit the water, and depending on the angle of how far you've cast it, how long your rod is, how deep the water is, you will have some sort of angle like this, obviously. But you look, you know what, I'm going to pop a lure on there just so it's a bit easier to see everything. So I'm going to pop a Keitech not Easy Shiner, a Keitech Shad Impact on there. So just nose hooked in this case, nice and flexible, and your lure will stay where you want it to stay. You can use fairly heavy weights with drop shot, because obviously you're not connected to your lure with the weight. So you keep it there, your weight stays on the bottom, lays down, whatever, and you can play with your lure and do whatever you like. And then obviously you can move it a tiny bit, you can move it a tiny bit. But if you don't want to, you don't have to move it at all. You can give the lure an action without actually moving away from the spot that you really, really want to fish in. So that is really the main advantage of the drop shot rig. You are staying in that hot spot as long as you like. Lures for drop shot: pintails like this Shad Impact, or DoLive stick in 3.5 inch or bigger or smaller. Anything pintaily that kind of reacts on a vertical kind of, because you are essentially doing some sort of vertical fishing. So anything that will react or have some nice action on that. Again, something nice and soft. Here the S.L.T Minnow is really nice as well from Noike. I really like that on the drop shot. Or obviously a natural worm bait on the drop shot, absolute killer. Obviously you can fish the drop shot a bit more active as well. In that case, you're more than welcome to use a paddle tail if you're dragging your drop shot over the bottom a bit quicker, or even jigging it into the water a little bit and letting it sink. Your paddle tail will also start its action on the drop shot rig. Drop shot has a little bit of a bad rep. It is a little bit because it needs a lot of patience, and a lot of people find it a little bit boring to fish the drop shot. I am one of these people, but without anyone who finds it boring as well, there is absolutely no doubt in the really effectiveness of the drop shot rig. You can fish close to a boat, close to a structure in the water, underneath the boat, underneath overhanging trees, just wherever you like, and it doesn't matter. You don't need a boat, you don't need to be on top of that spot. You can really keep your lure really long in that spot. Very nice, very good. I wouldn't say one of my favorite finesse rigs, like I said, for the free rig and for the Texas rig, but definitely a killer during cold days as well, when the fish are really lethargic and you really need to keep the lure in front of them for a long time. They kind of need to check out the lure a little bit. They're not 100% sure. Do I want it? Am I hungry? It's very cold. I don't want to move a lot. Give the fish the extra time, and for that the drop shot is absolutely ideal, when the fish would absolutely ignore something that will just fly past or even crawl past. That lure that will just shimmer in front of them and just stays there and stays there and stays there. At some point they'll nail it. And this is nose hooked, like I said, on the drop shot. Again, because it's not directly connected to your weight, the fish will almost always inhale the whole lure. So this obviously looks like that'll never hook a fish, but it absolutely does, especially if you're using soft materials like Keitech. The fish will inhale it. There's no weight to inhale and will get hooked on, even on a hook like this. Drop shot, over and out.